Hello, Shania. Are you hearing me? Shania, if you are hearing, you type yes in the chat. Otherwise, I'm likely to begin much as I had preferred to begin when I'm sure that you are hearing me well. Two, if you don't respond by voice, it is going to make this engagement tricky because I'd want us to have an interactive session where we all communicate, we all talk. You tell me what is in your mind, what you read, what you understand. Then I also supplement from there. I'm giving you 2 minutes to respond. Alternatively, I will just assume that you are hearing me, then I take on the fly, begin the session. Oh, Shania, you're not hearing me? Hello. Hello, do you hear me? Oh, you can hear me, and then the girl was not hearing, and she has left. Oh. Could be she's having a problem with her device. Okay, let us begin. Good morning, everyone. I'm Isiko Daniel, the presenter for today's discussion. The engagement is for CRE. It is the CRE Senior to Engagement, and our emphasis today is going to be put on of work changing society. As we look at work in a changing society, we are going to emphasis on the partners of work today and the partners of work in African traditional society. Why are we going to look at those two? With intentions of drawing a contrast between the way work is perceived today and the way work was perceived in the past. To draw that contrast very well, we need to begin by understanding the partners of work today. When we talk of the partners of work today, we are referring to the understanding of work today, the way work is seen, the work is understood, the work is perceived. Today, there are new jobs on the scene as partners of work. For example, we have computer-related jobs on the scene. Today, work is timetabled in a way that before doing anything, you do a timetable for it. For example, in all secondary schools in Uganda, they have a weekly and termly timetable. Teachers follow their work of teaching. We'll say today there is widespread unemployment in the field of work. This is brought about by the increasing cases of rural urban migration. People run out from villages to towns, and at the end of it all, we find that we have open unemployment, where there are so many people in towns without jobs. That's why there is a very big population of people who are unemployed. Today, work is impersonal. When we say work is impersonal, we mean that the relationship between workers today and their bosses is minimal. You find that you work for a given company when you hardly physically meet the proprietors or the bosses. For example, most of the CNG have never physically met the proprietor or the director of Kakira Sugar Works. You say today, work is predominantly full of illiterates. The number of illiterate workers is big. You say today, work is associated with high levels of corruption and tribalism, where people prefer to give jobs to their henchmen, to people they are related to. And at times, before getting a job, you are supposed to part with some little money. You say today, in the field of work, there is payment for every single task one does. They expect to be paid. I'll give you an example. I have my daughter who is just 3 years old. But even when you send her to the shop to buy her own eggs to eat, she will ask for something. That you are sending me to the shop, but will you give me some 100? So she's expecting to be paid to go and buy her own eggs. It was a funny example, but it is showing you how work has turned out to be associated with payment. For everything one does, there is a pay. In schools, even when you tell a child or a student, we want you to perform very well, the student will ask you, teacher, you are telling me to perform very well, but what it will give me in case I perform very well? A student is expecting some pay as appreciation for performing well. You'll say, in work day, there is a high degree of supervision. For example, when you visit secondary schools like Uganda Matters Namugongo, there is somebody who is in charge of tracking the timetable and the way it is followed by teachers. That is supervision in work. Having looked at those are some of the partners of work today, we now look at how those partners of work today have changed. They may ask you a question. Explain the changing partners of work today. The moment they say explain the changing partners of work today, they are indirectly telling you that the way work is done today or understood today is not the way it was done or understood in the past. Therefore, they want you to draw a contrast between today and the past in relation to understanding of work. They may say, today, the way work is perceived is different from the way work was perceived in the past. Explain. You will give the differences. They may be very clear. They say, give the differences between work today and work in the past. If they say, give the differences between work today and work in the past, you will just direct the move to the differences. When we talk of the past, most of our answers will draw from the African traditional society. When we talk of African traditional society, we put emphasis on that African society which existed before the introduction of modern science and Christianity. Much as it is well known that African traditional values have been passed on even up to the present, but under normal circumstances, if the tense has not been switched, we always prefer to use the past tense when we are referring to African traditional society. What are some of the key words we expect you to use when drawing a contrast, when giving a difference between work today and work in the past, or when giving differences of any nature in relation to CRE? We expect you to use conjunctions or joining words like yet, while, whereas, or but, therefore. Out of those four, you choose to use one. What are some of the words which we don't expect to see in your answers? Words like unlike, which is not the case, which was not the case. In case you use such words, then your answer is likely to lose meaning. When you are giving differences, we still expect you to present two contrasting ideas. When we say present two contrasting ideas, what do we mean? We mean that you give two ideas, but which are in the same line, which are contrastable. You are comparing Isiko with Shania. We expect you to say Isiko is tall, while Shania is short. If you say Isiko is tall, while Shania is brown, that is wrong. Find their differences. But are they in the same line? No. Because they are not in the same line, you will lose the scores. How are you to be marked when you present your differences in the most acceptable way? you earn 2 marks in a single paragraph. In other words, we refer to such questions as double score questions. They are double score questions because you get 2 marks in a single paragraph. Saying Isiko is tall is a mark, while Shania is short is another mark. In other words, 5 points will be enough to earn you 10 out of 10. A good student will give like 7, such that others are for backup. Now let us move to the real gist of the matter. Contrasting or giving differences between worker today and worker in the past. Today, worker is paid for, while in the past, worker was free of charge. Saying today worker is paid for is a mark, while in the past, worker was free of charge is another mark. If you say today worker is paid for, which was not the case in the past, that is wrong. We want to see what was that case in the past. If you say today worker is paid for, but in the past it was not paid for. If it was not paid for, then what was it? In other words, we don't expect that note to appear in your answer. You say today worker is paid for, while in the past was free of charge. We say today work is timetable. In other words, timetable. In the past, worker would go on at any time. We would expect you to say today there is a great distinction. There is great separation between work and leisure. While in the past, work was integrated with leisure. We can say work was interwoven with leisure. We can say work and leisure would go on at the same time. You would find somebody, like amongst the Iteso, you'd find a woman grinding millet. That is work. But at the same time, she would be singing for her husband. That is leisure. The two are moving on hand in hand. However, when we are giving our answer, we don't go into those details. We just present the contrast. Just saying today, there is a great distinction between work and leisure, while in the past, work and leisure would go on at the same time. That is enough. You would say today, there is a lot of supervision at workplaces, but in the past, people enjoyed work with great degree of freedom. Everyone was his own boss. You would say today, there is widespread unemployment in the field of work, while in the past, everyone was a worker by virtue of being born. The moment one was born, the moment one was in existence, it was yet today the story is different. Today the story is different. We are saying today there is widespread unemployment in the field of work, while in the past, everyone had what to do. Everyone was a worker by virtue of being born. You would say today, the skills of work are passed on at an early stage in life in universities and colleges, while in the past, the skills of work were passed on at an early stage in life. I'm going to give this kind of example just for purposes of emphasis, much as it is not required in your answers when you're writing. Some of you today are in your 20s, some are in 18, 13, 14. but you don't even know what kind of job, what kind of work, what kind of career you're going to take on in future. You have not trained in anything as of now. You will only go for job training at university when you're around 20 or 18. In the past, if you're a son of a carpenter or a blacksmith, you would learn from job. That is apprentice. Such a thing is non-existent today. That's why we are saying today the skills of work are passed on at an early stage of life. No, the skills of work are passed on at an early stage in life in universities and colleges, where in the past, the skills of work were passed on at an early stage in life through learning by doing. You would say today, people work from distant places, while in the past, people used to work within the vicinity of their homes. When we say vicinity of their homes, we are meaning around their homesteads. Let me still use an example, just for emphasis, but it's not required in your answers. I repeat, when you are giving differences, there is no room for examples. But for purposes of emphasis, let us look at this analogy. You bet, I, for one, am an Iteso from Soroti, but I'm working in Mbarara. How many are those? People work from distant places, from their homes today. Let us look at the past. If you were somebody born around Chitochanjovu in Masaka, you would still work around Chitochanjovu. This business of migrant workers was non-existent. You would work around your home. That's why in our answer we are saying today, people work from distant places, whereas in the past, people would work around their homes or would work within the vicinity of their homesteads. You can go ahead and say, today, the aspect of God is ignored in work, while in the past, work was done in a religious context. Let me bring in this for an example. I'm a Christian. I'm teaching you CRE, Christian Religious Education. We have started our live engagement, but did you hear any single prayer? We just straight away began. Nothing to do with prayer. We have totally ignored God in our lesson. That is how work is today. I've not done it because I don't know that God is important, but that is how we have grown up doing it. Let us look at the past. In the past, if one was to plant, they would have planting rituals. They would first pray to the gods, the ancestors. If they were to harvest, they had harvesting rituals. They would thank the ancestors for the good harvest. If they were going for wars, they would first go to the ancestors for blessings. Whatever somebody did, it was supposed to be done in a religious context. They had to invoke, they had to call upon God in whatever they were to do. An aspect is totally ignored today. That's why we are saying today the aspect of religion, the aspect of God is ignored in work, while in the past, work was done in a religious context. Work is done individually, while in the past, we are so many people on this platform. the digital platform. But each person has his own role. My role is to teach CRE. I'm suffering with you alone. I'm doing it individually. We would have put heads together. I say something, somebody also is also saying something. But today, work is done on individual basis. If your wife is a teacher and you as a husband, you're a carpenter, you do your work of carpenter alone, and she also do her work of teaching alone, no helping one another. Let us look at the past. In the past, if I'm to cite an example of the Iteso, say I'll cite examples of Itesos because I come from there. An example of the Itesos. If it was around the harvesting season, members of the entire village would go and harvest millet from a single garden, from one person's garden. They used to call it camp. They would go and camp in somebody's garden and work there as a community, communal work. That's why we are calling it communal. That's why we have said that today work is done individually, from the word individual. Each individual does it alone. While in the past, work was done communally, from the word community. You would say today, what? While in the past, work was done manually. If I cite an example, we are here on Yaka digital platform, Yaka e-learning. We are learning, we are teaching you, we are engaging you, we are facilitating you. That is work, but we are doing it electronically. Electronic learning, e-learning. Let us use another kind of example. I want to look at money counting machines in banks. You would expect somebody, the accountant, to count billions and billions of money with her fingers. But they use machines to count money in the banks. That is computerized or mechanized. Let us go to combine harvesters in large plantations like Kachira Sugar Works. They use combined harvesters to cut sugarcane. Mechanized, computerized. Let us look at the past. In the past, whatever you did, you were supposed to do it manually, using your own physical energy. That is why in our explanation we have said today work is computerized or mechanized, while in the past work was done manually. You would still say today men and women do the same kind of jobs. Work is done irrespective of age, sex, or talent. While in the past, work was categorized according to age. I will use a simple example still. Remember, we have said examples are not needed in our answers when we are writing answers. I'm bringing these examples for purposes of emphasis. When we are dealing with questions of differences, questions of contrast, there is no space for examples. The reason that's why I'm bringing them in is to help you understand it better. Let's bring in this example. I have a sister. She's female. She cooks food in a certain restaurant, but her chef is a man. The man is also getting involved in the work of cooking. The woman is cooking, the man is also cooking. Let us look at the past. Cooking was for women. as many would go for hunting or building. That's why we are getting our explanation that today work is distributed irrespective of sex, while in the past, work was given according to sex. Similarly, we can say today work is given irrespective of age, while in the past, work was categorized according to age. Can cite a simple example. I have my uncle who is in Bwaise vending water, is a water vendor. He fetches water and sells it to people. His work is for fetching water. In the past, we used to believe that fetching water was for children. That's why we have said today, work is given irrespective of age, while in the past, work was categorized according to age. We had work for children and work for adults. We have given quite a number of them. But what is important is that when you are dealing with contrasts in an exam, you need to know that you present two contrasting ideas. You need to know that you don't use words like unlike. You need to know that you don't use words like which is not the case or which was not the case. You also need to know that as you are giving your ideas, they are supposed to be in the same line and contrastable. Short of that, you will be losing scores. You also need to know that there is no room for giving examples when you are dealing with differences. You also need to know that we have so many words they can use when they are requiring you to give differences. Words like explain the changing partners of work. The moment you say changing partners, they want you to look at what is there today and what was there in the past. Changing partners. They are showing that the way things are today is different from the way things were in the past. They may say differences between work day and work in the past. Differences between work day and work in African traditional society. It is the same thing. They may say explain the changing attitudes towards work. Changing attitudes towards work. You still give the same thing. The changes which you can see as of now in work in relation to the past. Having said all that, I suggest we stop here for our today's engagement and prepare for the next meeting. As we meet next time, our emphasis will be on work in African traditional society. Remember, we have looked at work today and work in the past, giving differences. We drew much emphasis on today. Next time, we are going to draw much emphasis on the past, only and only the past. This time around, not giving differences. Thank you for tuning in. This is Isiko Daniel of Yaka Digital Platform, Yaka e-learning. Stay tuned.